Let's go back to where the games truly began, back before the anime was even a possibility, all the way to Volume 1 of the light novel, the pilot volume that kickstarted the entire No Game No Life series. This volume covers episodes 1 to 4 of the anime, and with the anime, a number of things did change, mostly for the good in my opinion, but in the same vein, a couple of those changes may not work exactly all that well. And I think it is important to go back and analyze the source material, as it gives a lot more insight into the characters' mentality as they were transported into this other world, and gives further insight into the games that are played, as well as where the series itself just began, what it started out as, and what it evolved into. Now, I do plan to cover a lot of those larger concepts in future videos of their own, and in this video I want to focus on more of the plot-relevant things and changes that took place from Volume 1 of the light novel to episodes 1 to 4 of the anime, to both analyze how this will work for the future episodes and the implications that it may have. Now, to give a brief recap for episodes 1 to 4 and Volume 1 in and of itself, I'm going to assume most people have seen the anime. If you haven't, I highly recommend going to watch it, and if you haven't read the light novels, I highly recommend doing so as well, as it gives a very good perspective and comparison to the anime in and of itself. Now, of course, the series starts off by introducing us to our protagonists. I think that's the right word to describe both Sora and Shiro, though they're not kind of the typical protagonists that you come across. Two neat gamer siblings that are known online by the name Blank. Legendary gamers that have set multiple records in numerous games that have never been able to be beaten. Not even close. And as we're introduced to them, we see that their lifestyle, not really that great, until one day they are challenged to a game of chess seemingly out of nowhere. Upon taking that challenge and winning that challenge together, they are transported to the world of Disboard. And learning of Disboard and the 10 covenants that govern it, they are pretty much just left by God on the side of the road, ambushed by bandits. But since the bandits can't actually harm them thanks to the covenants, the gamer siblings make quick work of them and are able to start getting the lay of the land. They have some funds, are able to get some lodging, and realize that the kingdom of Elkia, the last bastion of humanity, is falling apart, pretty much. And there is a gambling contest going on to decide the next king. So of course, they get involved in that. They meet the former heir to the throne, Princess Stephanie Dola, but considering her grandfather in her will, said that a gambling competition will determine the next king. To determine humanity's greatest gambler, well, she's no longer next in line for the throne. They get enthralled with her, and through that encounter, they realize that magic exists in this world, and the main opponent in that gambling tournament, Kurumi Zell, is in cahoots with another race, using magic to cheat her way to victory, and that would spell doom for the kingdom of Elkia and all of humanity. So of course the gamer siblings take it into their own hands to tackle the challenge of facing Kurumi and real magic, leading to the confrontation that takes place in a game of real war chess. Blank eventually win, and Sora and Shiro prove that humanity can stand on its own, and also declare war on the rest of the world, the other 15 races that exist on Disboard. That is just the bare bones brief summary of Volume 1 and the anime. Again, you want the full story? Make sure to watch that yourselves. But the changes between the anime and the light novel are quite interesting. First and foremost, the anime introduced Blank, Sora, and Shiro in the form of their battle against Queen, and a guild of 1,200 people. 1,200 players versus 4. And to top that off, the 4 accounts were controlled by 2 people, and each of those accounts was only level 30, whereas it seems a majority of those 1,200 accounts were level 90. So right out of the gate, we can obviously see that this game is one where the level that you acquire is more determined by how much you've played the game and how much you've won, etc., rather than your actual level determining the stats that you have. Because if that was the case, I think it would be impossible for Sora and Shiro to win, no matter how well they played, if their stats were that much lower than the level 90s. I think your level just determines, like, your skill level at the game. But since they started with new accounts, Sora and Shiro could, well, and do, have higher skill level than obviously every single one of these players to have such an overwhelming victory against such overwhelming odds. It's a good way to introduce us to the characters and their insane abilities at gaming. After that point though, things play out relatively the same as Sora and Shiro get challenged by Tet to the chess match. Sora and Shiro win, they get transported to the other world, and in the light novel actually, Tet just kind of drops them off, and it's the bandits that end up telling Sora and Shiro about the 10 Covenants and introducing them to the world. That does happen in the anime as well, but Tet gives them a more clear explanation. Granted, when having a 10,000-foot skydive, your mind probably isn't focusing on the little child falling next to you that's telling you the rules of the world. It's more just on, not dying. So I can understand why they had to have it explained a second time. And then as they get to the inn, in the anime, Sora ends up challenging a blonde woman, egging her on into a gambling match to take all her money, essentially. In the light novel, he ends up challenging a middle-aged dude, and it's left ambiguous exactly why that guy engaged in the challenge with Sora and Shiro's life on the line, why exactly he would want to take that challenge. In the anime, they did a much better job explaining that Sora just pissed her off enough to take that match. So in my opinion, that was a very good change to make. And then we are introduced to Stephanie Dola and Kurumi Zell as they are having their gambling match, and Stephanie is sorely losing. And this is because, as Sora and Shiro notice, she's cheating, but they don't exactly know how. They realize, though, that magic is at play, that Kurumi has an ally. And we do see the ally in the anime, and it is hinted at in the light novel as well, and eventually revealed when Sora and Shiro go to challenge Kurumi. But here's the thing. In the light novel, it was just a nameless elf, an elf man. Feel had not been, I think, even created at this point. In the anime, it was Feel Nirvalin that was Kurumi's ally, and Kurumi's ally throughout all of No Game No Life thus far. Those two are joined at the hip just like Sora and Shiro are. Different circumstances, obviously, but they are two in one. They are supposed to be mirrors of one another. That wasn't the case in Volume 1 of the light novel. Again, another excellent change, introducing Kurumi alongside Feel, and Feel being the reason that Kurumi was able to get the elves to work with her. So just by the fact of Feel not existing in the light novel really shows that Volume 1 of the light novel was the pilot. Things hadn't been fully thought out for the story, or all of the ideas hadn't come to fruition just yet, and it's good to see how things have evolved and how the characters have really come to life, as Feel does appear later on in the light novels and continues on the story that we know from the anime already. And it wasn't just Feel that probably hadn't been thought of as of the writing of Volume 1. There was something else, probably even more significant and impactful to the overall story of No Game No Life. The existence of the race pieces. The actual object that symbolizes the rights of an individual to kind of rule over a race. The object that is bet when you are wagering the rights of an entire race to be part of the Exceed, to be bound by the Covenants. The most important objects to exist in No Game No Life. Apart from the Suniaster itself that Tet possesses, the race pieces are the most important object to each individual race. And in my opinion, a wonderful addition to the series. The scene where Sora gives that speech to all of humanity and the race piece appears in front of him is one of the most iconic scenes in the entire show, and probably out of all of the light novels thus far. But it did not exist in Volume 1, only to be introduced later, and was a fantastic change to introduce, of course, in my opinion. After seeing the match and letting Stephanie know that her opponent's cheating, but, not really doing anything about it, they go off to their room, get some shut-eye, and Stephanie comes to knock on their door. And here's where we get to a difference in the anime that I'm not quite sure, saying I'm not quite sure as to why they made the change. It's obvious why they made the change, for fan service, but in the light novel, Stephanie never loses her dress. In the anime, it's stated that Stephanie loses her dress to Kurumi in the gambling match, which never really made sense to me even when I was watching the anime for the first time, because that would mean that Kurumi, just out of spite, took Steph's bet, that she bet the very clothes she was wearing, to just humiliate her more. Kurumi knew she was going to win. She had magic on her side. Steph, not a great gambler, at least at this point in the light novel. spoilers for later on, she gets better. So, make sure to subscribe if you want to see how Steph grows throughout each of these light novels. But really, with Kurumi taking that bet, that just makes her seem like such a, well, evil and bad person, that she wanted to humiliate Steph by taking her dress, and later on when she ends up dropping it on the floor. That never happens in the light novel, and although I get the idea that they're trying to present in the anime that Steph needs to be able to stand up for herself and, well, everything that we saw in the anime, other things that I will get into in future videos, it makes more sense that Kurumi, once taking Steph's right to the throne away through the gambling tournament, would have no reason to take on any future bets with Steph. So that part in the anime just didn't really make all that much sense to me, or wasn't as worth it, I think, for the kind of disjointed nature that it brings. Because Kurumi really isn't that black-hearted, as we even see later on in the anime. She's cold at a lot of times, partially because of the trauma that she's experienced throughout her life, but she's not, like, vindictive or anything like that, and I think that's a little bit of an injustice to her character at this point in time. But that's another thing we will discuss as we move through the light novels. And then, of course, Sora ends up in that rock, paper, scissors game against Steph, which Sora obviously wins, cons his way into having Steph fall in love with him. Happens pretty much the same way in the light novel as it does in the anime, and I do plan on discussing the rock, paper, scissors match in its own video. I think each of the games present in No Game No Life are deserving of their own videos, and I'm only going to discuss the more major changes that happen. In this video, I'm just going to point out any major differences in the games, which there really isn't with the rock, paper, scissors match, but there is in the next game we're going to discuss a little bit about. Because as Sora and Shiro start interacting with Steph more, they end up, befriending her, wanting to help her and wanting to save humanity. They hate how Kurumi is underestimating humanity by teaming up with another race. And so this, of course, leads to Sora and Shiro challenging Kurumi for the right to the throne. After Sora and Shiro call out that Kurumi is working with another race, and we see the male elf in the light novel, or Feel in the anime, Kurumi decides to change the game from a simple card game to a game of real war chess. And things are very different with real war chess in the anime versus the light novel. Now, the game generally plays out the exact same way, with each person's charisma and ability to lead being tested through this chess match. Link up there if you want to see the full discussion of real war chess, but the actual game board setup is very different. In the anime, we see that there are large chess pieces that Sora, Shiro, and Kurumi are kind of lording over and ordering their commands. This is a private venue with only the judge and the 3 players present. In the light novel, however, it's a standard-sized chessboard that Sora and Shiro are sitting on one side of a table and Kurumi on the other. And this is taking place in the throne room where there are a ton of spectators. So in the light novel, there are a ton of witnesses for Sora and Shiro's exploits in this chess match, how they are able to defeat Kurumi and how they are able to overcome elven magic. People are cheering for them as they are making moves, and with it being a smaller chessboard in the light novel, Sora's sweet talking of Kurumi's queen to join his own side makes a lot more sense, in my opinion. Because if we think about it for a second in the anime, how did Sora get from the balcony over top of the chess match to standing in front of the queen quick enough to literally stop the queen's blade as she was already making a strike towards his own chess piece? For someone who doesn't use magic, Sora can move incredibly quickly. As in the next scene, after that happened, after the queen switched sides, we can see him walking all the way back around and coming out of the hallway behind that balcony. So, Sora either jumped down or did something. Either way, for someone who's a gamer that really never gets much exercise, he can move really fast. And that was one of the other changes that didn't really make sense to me. Though I get wanting to have it on a larger scale because it just makes it so much more of an event for the anime, and also removing the spectators is probably a good idea as well. This is a key thing that the anime did, is that a lot of Sora and Shiro's connections and abilities are kept kind of hidden. The rest of the public knows that they won, but they don't know how. They don't know how they did it, they don't know if they are getting help from another race, as the rest of the world presumes, and as it's explained in the anime, Sora and Shiro want people to question them, want people to suspect them, so that they are constantly being watched, as becomes incredibly relevant when they eventually get to the game against Warbeast in Volume 3 of the light novel, and, you know, the later episodes of the anime, where it's happening on this grand stage, and to avoid the opponents cheating or using obvious cheats, they want all of humanity with their eyes fixated on the match. So removing the spectators is something that makes complete sense, as it does for the final large change between the light novel and episodes 1 to 4 of the anime. And that is when Tet arrives in episode 4 of the anime, at the end of the light novel, to talk to Sora and Shiro, to kind of give them a little bit of an extra encouragement, and just touch base with them. In the anime, Tet just talks to Sora and Shiro. He approaches them while they are alone in the royal bedchamber. And Steph eventually finds out that, wait, you were talking with the one true god, Tet? And, you know, that's why Stephanie also completely and utterly trusts Sora and Shiro. Not only because of their abilities, she does doubt them because of their personalities, but considering she knows that the one true god brought Sora and Shiro to this world, you know, it kind of makes it difficult to doubt someone and doubt their ability to go up against the other races when the literal god that lords over all of the other races actually was the one who brought them there. In the light novel, Tet actually approaches Sora and Shiro while Steph is present and while a lot of the other ministers of Elkia are present as well. And it makes complete sense as to why that happened in the anime very differently. Because having the ministers present, and when Tet introduces himself and says his godly name, everyone understands the gravity of what that means. All of the ministers and Steph each break out into a cold sweat, whereas, you know, Sora and Shiro are just greeting an old friend, or a gamer buddy, essentially. And if the ministers not only heard, but actually saw Tet come to visit their king and queen, they would never doubt Sora and Shiro, ever. And, well, let's just say something along those lines happens later in the light novels that, you know, if this actually happened, if this event where the ministers saw Tet talk to Sora and Shiro actually happened, events probably wouldn't have played out the exact same way. So I completely understand why the ministers were removed from this part of the equation. So that pretty much covers most of the main differences that I noticed, at least, plot-wise, between the light novel, Volume 1, and episodes 1 to 4 of the anime. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read the light novel and watched the anime, if there are any other major changes that I should have pointed out in this video, what your favorite part was of the beginnings of this story. And if this is your first introduction to No Game No Life, I hope maybe that I've encouraged you to actually start watching the anime or, you know, reading the light novels. In either case, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did want to see more videos like this, analyzing No Game No Life, the games that happen in there, the characters, the world, etc., make sure to subscribe. And if you want to see some games played live, then maybe check out my Twitch channel. I stream every Tuesday and Saturday, so give me a follow there, and we can chat No Game No Life as well. In the meantime, I'll see you guys all in the next video. Ashente.